Welcome to the Financial Liberty Podcast. Until you wake up from the American dream, financial uncertainty will be your American reality. Join Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto and their guests as they explore how you can attain financial liberty by uncovering truths that have been kept secret for decades. Have you ever played a game and didn't know the rules? How can you ever win? Learn the rules to the game and in turn, learn how to win. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Liberty Project with Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto. Today, gentlemen, what are we talking about?
We're talking about some good stuff today. We got a great show.
Good stuff.
Very
That's
general.
original.
That's very general. I like that. Yes.
I like that. So good.
Can we get a little bit more, a little more specific, please?
Yeah, the show where I get to roast Sam all the way through, right?
Start. Get it.
All right, stuff.
How's it going, Koz?
Stuff master.
What
All right. Move along, Sam. What do we got for our show today?
So how's it going? Well, we got an interesting show today. We actually have a very, very interesting show. We've got a lot of statistics. We've got a lot more retirement dream type drama. And really it's just, we're going to see if we can get through these 7 facts of stealth things that can destroy the retirement vision. And many times it's because we talk about a lot of this things that can step up and jack someone's retirement up, right? But I got to tell you, there's also the obvious, but there's also the not so obvious. I think we covered it.
Not so obvious ones.
Yeah, this was the not so obvious ones.
All right.
But I wanted to actually start though, because as you know, we get a lot of people that from time to time they reach out to us, and we're in workshops. We have a questionnaire that people have, and I actually ran into one, and I think we better answer this guy's question here pretty quickly, because it's something that should concern some people. So this guy, Gerald, he's from Corona, and he says he works 2 jobs. I enjoy my second job, but I must admit that it adds to an extra 20 hours a week of work on top of my 40 at my main job. That's 60 hours, I guess, Gerald. I'm working, but seem to keep going around in circles and can't gain control of my expenses. Recently, a financial guy said that I need to stop working my second job to enhance my quality of life. I'd like to spend more time with my wife, but if I can get a hold of my expenses with 2 jobs, how can I with just one?
Well, that's an interesting question. So he's addicted to the income of having 2 jobs, right?
And also he's addicted to the expenses that he can't gain control of.
Well, that's where his addiction comes from. He's got expenses that he has to service. So it's interesting. So he can quit that second job, and then that's going to force him to drop some expenses. He's going to take some bumps on the head. But you know what? If you have an absence of income, you have no choice but to drop some expenses. It might be, the monthly beer tab, having to, you have to drop the country club membership or something like that. But yeah, a lot of times people say, well, I've got to cut expenses and then maybe I'll back off on the second job. But heck, sometimes you just got to take the bull by the horn, just lose the job, and then you go home and start cutting out all the expenses. And in 1 week, you can be right back to where the 40-hour job can handle all the expenses, but not going to the country club anymore.
From that standpoint, yeah. If the guy he said he spoke to a financial guy that says that he should stop working a second job to enhance his quality of life. But I'm looking at it. The one thing here, Gerald, which maybe you can follow up with us if we see you again, or reach out to us and follow up. But just out of curiosity, where are you with regards to your retirement? And I'll tell you, if you have a second job and you're really behind the 8 ball as far as having enough money saved and being so far away from being able to wake up and not have to worry about money, then you may want to do what Koz indicated, which is suck it up and actually keep working that second job so you can keep putting some more money away for your retirement so you can actually enjoy time with and have quality life in the last 1/3 of your life. So that's another thing. And that's the data codes that we don't necessarily have is he has a lot of expenses right now. It appears that he can't gain control of his expenses, which seems to be the tone that a lot of people are currently going through. They can't get a hold of their own expenses. You know why? Because they don't have a budget, man. They don't just get out a piece of paper. How hard is it to make a budget, dude? Really?
I would say it takes It's simple. It takes about maybe half an hour. I mean, you can literally have a budget in half an hour. How? Go to your bank, see if they have a download option on the website where you can download your expenses for the last 1 to X number of months. And they already have them categorized in a lot of cases, and you just download them to a spreadsheet, and you can see how you're spending in the period of 1 month. And then you can take that over more months if you want, but it'll give you an idea. And it's very simple. Half all it takes.
It's pretty easy, right? So he has all these expenses, and he's out of control, and I think it just comes back down to what we preach, and that is, too bad in society where we're not taught at a very early age and through the school system how to learn how to budget. And because here it is, you got all these Fortune 500 companies, they operate from a budget. They know well in advance over the next 12 to 18 to 2 years, and it's called a pro forma, what their potential revenue, earnings, and what the financial health of that company is going to be. So I figure, well, you should be able to go ahead and see where you're going to be in 2 years. So I think, Gerald, provide us with more information, because I'd probably say, hey, stick at your second job unless you already won the game, and unless you already have, a good amount of income or a good amount of assets in your retirement war chest that will last you for the rest of your life, if not beyond it. If not, keep that second job, man. Get a hold of those expenses, dude, and do yourself a favor and start budgeting. You and your wife really need to go ahead and start listening to more of our podcasts out here and learn how to get control of your finances. That's what we're all about, right, Koz?
Absolutely.
Get
control.
Yeah. So that was a good one. While we're at it, I got another one here.
Okay, but I was going to say, it's not like you have to do a budget every month. You just do it once. It gives you an idea where you're at, and then maybe do another snapshot a few months down the road, just to kind of get a better idea where you're at. But it doesn't take much time. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
All right. So what else we got next here, Sam?
Well, we got Teresa from Newport Beach.
Teresa.
Yeah, she wants to know, I heard you guys talk about pensions before and that they're not to be relied on necessarily. I have a pension and it's been paying me for the past 15 years since I retired. So what gives?
What gives?
What gives? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. You want to answer that, Koz? Koz is saying, no. So let's go and read that again, because I just read it and I'm like, the what gives part kind of like threw me off. I heard you guys talk about pensions before and that they're not to be relied on necessarily. I have a pension and it's been paying me for the past 15 years since I retired. So what gives? Well, what gives, Teresa, is that we're in a society now where, unfortunately, pensions aren't necessarily a thing that people get nowadays. As a matter of fact, when you get a job, more than likely, all you have is a 401k plan. And that's really it. You might be lucky enough to get an ESOP, and depending on where you are and what kind of role you have with the company, you could very well have some stock options too. But for the most part, I'd probably say that pensions are a thing of the past. And that's what we basically meant, is that you're not necessarily going to be receiving a pension, whatever company you might be with going forward. But at the same time, the thing that really concerns us about a lot of these pensions is that you sometimes got to be careful. You got to be careful because you got to remember, pensions aren't your money. It's money that's set aside by corporations for the benefit of you. And just understand that the company can always,
terms. They can change the terms. They can pay you less. They can stop paying you. They can go bankrupt. State of Ohio has a lot of problems right now along those lines. Sam, we know, I won't mention the name of the company, but we know of a major company here, and it's nationwide. I'll just say, it goes so far as to say it's a utility company where their pension just a few years ago had to be re-subsidized, I guess is the word. They had to infuse capital from another part of their company that was profitable just to keep the pension alive. And that's a scary thought, but that's what happens quite frequently. And so if you think that you've got a lifetime income through a pension, hopefully you do, but there's no guarantee that that pension is going to continue to pay out for the rest of your life. Some bad stuff can go down. So you got to just be aware of that.
Oh, a lot of bad stuff can go down. I mean, I'm forgetting some of the cities in California here. I mean, take a look at, you take a look at Detroit, man. Detroit's the largest city in the United States ever to file for bankruptcy, right? And I think the previous record was held by Stockton, California.
Oh, yeah. Good old Stockton. I remember that.
Stockton. I mean, you think about it, if you were a municipal worker, you were a police officer, a fireman, and you had a pension with Stockton, city of Stockton, you may be on the short end of that stick, depending on the length of service and when you actually retired. So there's a lot of things, Teresa. And
I got a question for you, Sam. Help people understand. I've met a lot of people that believe that the pension that they think they're supposed to get is money that they control, they own. And I don't think that's quite true. I think pensions the ownership belongs to somebody else, right? Can you explain that a little bit?
The ownership belongs to someone else? You mean
right? So it belongs to the company that has the pension. And a lot of people that work for companies think that they own that money.
No, they don't. Yeah. No, it's interesting, the history behind pensions. It's actually, there's folklore about it, and some of the folklore is Teamsters from many years ago. Unions were all set up, and they created these pensions. What transpired is that a lot of these corporations created a pension and said, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to put some money aside for you. But deep down inside, they realized that you weren't going to be, retiring from that company for a good 30, 35 years. So they can put money aside for you, quote unquote, for you for the next 30, 35 years, but you're not going to touch it. Meanwhile, they can go ahead and take that money that they supposedly put away for you, and you multiply that by the thousands of employees that they have, and they've got a coffer filled with money that potentially they can go ahead and buy, their own things with, like maybe casinos and stuff, and so what transpired is that ultimately, these groups were approached and they were said, hey, you know what? It's interesting. You got these, literally billions of dollars in these coffers for people that are going to be retiring in several years in the future. But, it's interesting is that you're supposedly managing this money for these people. Because you're managing these money for these people, technically you are an investment company, otherwise known as a mutual fund, or you can be classified as an investment company, which means that you've got to start reporting some of this data. And some of these companies didn't necessarily want to report some of the data that they were compiling. And so what ended up happening is that started pushing pensions away. But the other part too, Koz, is that what you indicated just about 2-3 minutes ago is that, there was a very large company, Teresa, not long ago, whose mother company had to fulfill and actually contribute a very large amount of stock, like you said, Koz, to that underfunded pension plan. And I'd probably guess to say, Koz, that company, if that was made public, it was actually made public. You just got to hunt for it. But if that was made more aware, if we were made more aware as a general society, it would probably be dynamically problematic. No?
Absolutely. I mean, and, the question a lot of people ask is, if I have an option of taking the lifetime income in the form of a monthly pension benefit, or the other choice of taking a lump sum, that's a great question, but, there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just you've got to be aware of the pitfalls and the pros of each of those choices. But you pick the wrong option, you can literally destroy your retirement.
Yeah, in what way though, man? Because I think that's something we're kind of leading him on. And that's really important, because I think that a lot of people don't necessarily know that if they chose the wrong option, that they could potentially be ruining their legacy. I can't say ruin; that's a bad word, but they can really, do something to their legacy that they weren't intending to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll throw out a real life example. So, if you have an option of taking the lifetime pension monthly benefit or taking a lump sum, let's just say the monthly benefit is $2,000 a month, or you can take $600,000. Or just make it simple, $500,000 as a lump sum. Which option do you choose? Well, if you're careless with your money, you take the lump sum, and you decide to go and turn that into an ATM machine. That $500,000 is going to be gone in probably about 3 to 4 years. If you're one of those spender type people, so maybe it's better to take the lifetime option. But the problem with the lifetime option is, like we said, you could have the pension go bankrupt. But the other problem is, let's say you're a single parent and you've got a couple kids and you pass away early. So you get a couple thousand a month. And let's say you die in 6 months. You've collected $12,000 in benefits. Well, once you die, the rest of that $500,000 or $600,000 in a lump sum doesn't go to your kids. It's kept by the company. So basically your family just got, shortchanged almost $500,000.
It's gone.
So that's not a very good deal. So, you got to really talk to somebody and understand what the options are. But you do the wrong thing, you are, I would argue, Sam, that you actually are ruining your legacy.
Yeah.
Wrong choices. So
yeah, utilizing the word ruined. Yeah, because you're right. I mean, how many people have actually chosen the spousal survivor benefit when it came to a pension, and they go back and say, I wish I didn't do that, because they didn't necessarily realize that once their spouse is gone, once they're gone and their spouse is gone, their 1, 2, 3 your children, that they've spent their entire lives taking care of, don't get anything.
Well, and there's another aspect to the same thing. So again, the question of whether you take a pension lump sum or a pension monthly benefit. Well, there's rules. I mean, every plan's different, but there are usually time limits on how long you have to make that decision. And if you fail to make the decision in time, then they'll make the decision for you. And you'll lose, you'll lose one of the two options. Typically, you lose the option to take the lump sum, and so now you're just stuck with the monthly benefit.
Right.
So that for a lot of people is problematic. But we see people leave companies for whatever reason, and they fail to understand that there's a limit in time that they have to abide by, and they end up losing the option. And it's just sad to see when they discover that when it's too late.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we see that more than enough, right?
Oh yeah.
No, it's
So that's one of the insidious ways, or the less obvious ways that you can negatively affect your retirement, is just not understanding the rules, whether it's rules pertinent to your retirement plan at your company, or whether they're IRS rules or other types of rules. So, and it's very difficult to be aware of all the rules that you need to know, because how do you know which rules are important to you or are relevant to your individual case? So that's where you either have to become very educated, which is hard for most people to do because it takes time. And so a lot of people just need to really understand that they need to align themselves with people who have the expertise and knowledge to keep them in the correct side of the law or the rules.
And that's really kind of what the underlying message is to find someone. If you're working with a major corporation right now, or just some company, and you have the ability to attend these workshops that are held on behalf of the employees for you. A lot of these companies, they provide educational resources. Not all of them, but if you are lucky enough to be affiliated with a company that does provide that type of resource, then you should take advantage of it, because one, you're educating yourself on the information that you definitely need to know about not only the company's retirement, but potentially your retirement. But number two, I think a byproduct of that, Koz, is that you're also in this position where you're actually getting to know that particular individual that's hosting those educational workshops. And if let's say you start now and you're only 35 years old, by the time you're 50 and that individual and his company kept on coming, then you've now gained an element of trust. You now understand where this guy's coming from or this gal's coming from, and you are able to develop a relationship. And that's really important when it comes to a lot of these.
We go through high school, we go through college, we go through whatever we go through in our younger years. And one of the things that are topmost in our minds is finding a soulmate, right? And so we do the dating thing and we get all nervous and we get all giggly, and then we find the person that we fall in love with. And that's all great. And hopefully it's a long lasting relationship, into the twilight years. But one of the things that really people should really think about and embrace, in my opinion, is that don't stop looking for that soulmate. Well, you find your soulmate, but don't stop to search for finding a different kind of soulmate. And that I would consider a financial soulmate. So, you want to have somebody that has an understanding of all the rules. And as the rules change, because they change all the time, whether it's, government rules or IRS rules or just money rules or, company plan rules or whatever rules, you just want to have somebody that can say, look, I'm on top of the rules. I'm going to keep you on the straight and narrow. And so, we'll communicate, but I'll be your financial soulmate. And so you've got your soulmate at home, you've got your financial soulmate outside of the home. And who knows, you can extrapolate that to other kinds of soulmates. Maybe it's, I don't know, if you're like, you have a lot of pets, you want to have a pet expert soulmate. Getting a little ridiculous there, right, Sam? Help me out here.
How about a hockey soulmate? I'd certainly like to go ahead and have someone just help me out with hockey.
I need a golf swing soulmate, bro.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much. But, part of what we also wanted to talk about is there was a survey. I was reading this survey. And it was a survey in the group that was surveyed ranged between 60 years old and 79 years old. And the answer, the questions were really cool, but the answers were even more, staggering. And you got to remember that, when the survey was taken, the areas of the economy that we were under is pretty much the same. And that savers, they're dealing with significant college costs. They had a hard time saving. They had rises in housing costs and in rent. Sluggish wage growth, even though minimum wage went higher. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that didn't necessarily experience an increase in wages, and more we're starting to see people with zero retirement plans. So what was interesting, Koz, is that there's 150 million people that are employed. You know me, I love this demographic stuff, but there's 150 million people that are employed in the United States. You want to guess how many million have actually put money away into a retirement plan of some sort of the 150 million people?
Oh gosh, I would say, I don't know.
Give me a number.
So 150 million people work. I don't know. Is it less than 50? Probably less than 30 million.
No. I mean, not as bad as 30 million, but 54 million people.
Okay.
Put away money into a retirement plan.
That's bad.
That's 1/3 of the working public.
Yeah.
Now you understand why. I mean, you understand why, but the listeners, you guys understand why when we go out there that we're saying that there is a great American retirement crisis coming, because 2/3 of you are relying on Social Security and inheritance to go ahead and make it through the last 1/3 of your lives. That's brutal, man.
Well, that's a big burden on the following generations. I mean, they're going to have to figure out how to handle the 2/3 of the workforce that are going to be ill-equipped to sustain their living costs when they can no longer physically or mentally work anymore. So what? You've got people that are either living on the streets or they're in a nursing home supported by taxpayer dollars, and you are one of the people that were that you did things right, and you're finding that your taxes are going up because you're having to support the other 2/3 that were not doing the right things and taking care of themselves. That kind of bites.
No, in a big way. I mean, I think a lot of people talk about the sandwich generation that we're in, right? That we got to take care of our parents and also our kids. But you can pretty much see this. I mean, out of 150 million people that are currently employed, with only 1/3 of them putting money away into a retirement plan, you can see that, there's going to be a tremendous burden, like you said, on their children to go ahead and take care of, the 2/3 that don't have money set aside. I mean, think about this. Koz. So at 62, let's just say that the average Social Security that we've been encountering is around $1,800 a month. So we're looking at 2/3 of these people, the 150 million people that are currently employed, they're relying on Social Security more than likely. They've got something coming to them because they only got $1,800 a month that they're going to be receiving for the rest of their lives. And that's a significant, I mean, I'm looking at it, I don't even know if there's any words for it.
It's well, the word is it's very frightening. I mean,
what do we jacked up, man?
What do we do as a country? I mean, we're going to have to deal with it. And so, I mean, there's, it's kind of funny. I just thought of, I guess it's somewhere in California. I'm not going to mention the politician's name. This was a very well-known politician living in a very affluent area. And they're raising, I think they raised like $100 million or some ridiculously high amount of funding to stop the building of a homeless shelter in their neighborhood.
Whoa.
So you've got these politicians that are, they're responsible for our policies, right? And part of that is to, figure out how to deal with the homeless situation. And it's just getting worse. It's not getting better. And yet they won't allow one of those facilities to be built in their own neighborhood. I mean, not a surprise, right? Because they live in probably a real posh neighborhood, and those people aren't going to want to see a homeless shelter built in the middle of that. But it's kind of hypocritical because they're supposed to be taking care of these things. But that's the problem. I mean, just here in Southern California, along it's the 57 freeway was tent city. I remember years ago there was a single tent there. And then as recently, was it about a year ago before they were forced to move out? It was literally about 2-3 miles of tents, blue covered tents, tarps, and it was
that was recently
a city. Now, I don't know what the makeup of the population there was, whether there are people that didn't have enough, retirement income, or if they were, just troubled people that were, having drug addiction issues or whatever. But these kinds of things are just becoming more of a problem. LA had some kind of a bacterial or viral outbreak in downtown LA. You couldn't be going down the streets of downtown LA without fear of getting, contracting some illness that, supposedly had been eradicated for at least a century. These things are just getting worse and worse and worse. So I don't know what the education system's doing, but people are not being taught the things. So
no, there's a big issue. I mean, you look at it, that is lack of education. If we've ever experienced that 150 million people that are employed in the United States and only 54 million people are contributing to some sort of retirement plan, I got to tell you, that's a major fail. That's absolutely a major fail.
And you as citizens out there should be really upset that you're going to, if you're the responsible one out of the 3 people, that you've got to support the needs of 2 other people who you have no idea who they are, but you're going to have to support them. That should infuriate you. It really should.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're going down the freeway with your kids and their kids understand math and they understand you ought to be able to have a conversation at some point before they're too much older where you teach them the rule of 72. And I don't know if I should explain that here, but
go ahead and explain it as well. You said it.
Okay. So I'll give you an example. Caitlin, my daughter, is 17, loves to golf. But years ago, I started teaching her the rule of 72. Why? Because I think the rule of 72 is one of the most basic elements of money, or I would say the rules of money, that if everyone could understand that, we would have significantly lesser issues with homelessness, with preparation for retirement. If kids could just simply understand this rule. Rule 72 is simply this: take an interest rate and divide it into the number 72. The result is the number of years it takes for money to double at that interest rate. For example, if you can earn money at 10% and divide that into 72, the result is approximately 7, which is the number of years that it takes for money to double at a 10% rate. So let's just say you've got a kid at 30 years old. That's not really a kid, but I guess relative to my age, it would be. So you got a kid or an adult at 30 years of age. Again, it's also a function of their maturity, right, Sam? But
I'm a big kid.
So you've got a kid that has $100,000 by the age of 30, wants to retire at the age of 60. And let's just say that kid applies the Rule 72, knows that he or she can double that money from the age of 30, starting with $100,000 every 7 years, and he or she's got 30 years to retire. Then in 30 years, he or she's got what? 7 times 4, so at least four chances to double that money, right, Sam? So that 100,000 doubles from 100 to 200, 200 to 400, 400 to 800, and 800 to 1.6 million. So in that period of time, if I did the math right, that 100,000 should be able to grow into, what did I say, 1.6 million?
Yep.
That's the rule of 72. So the whole thing is, whether you've got 100,000 at the age of 30 or 50,000 or 10,000, you can apply the rule of 72. Simply do some basic retirement planning in your head as a kid. You don't have to be 30 years old. You could be Caitlin's age is 17. You could be 12 years old because you understand math and you can understand the rule of 72. And once you get that in your head, you can do retirement planning literally in your head while you're riding a bike or driving a car. You have conquered something that is very, very significant in terms of financial knowledge and literacy that can make a big difference in your long-term life. And you push that knowledge down to your kids and their kids, and we can solve a lot of problems in this country. Believe me, that Rule 72 is very important.
And we're going to potentially solve future problems. That's the big thing, is that we just don't know what we have in store over the course of the next 30, 40 years, especially because you got to remember something. We don't work forever. And yeah, albeit there, the advancement in modern medicine is allowing people to to live longer. And by a byproduct of that is it allows them to work longer too. And I think that, everyone knows, the powers that be understand that they need these people to work a little bit longer. They need them to start retiring around 72, 73, 74, and they got to take care of themselves better because they know very well that they don't necessarily have the fundage to take care of their own selves in the later years. The fundage. But yeah, so of the 60 to 79-year-olds in this survey, okay, that this group, but the people that did save money, believe it or not, 59% wish they saved more money of the people that saved money. So 60%. So 40% are pretty happy with where they are as how much money they save. So that seems like it's pretty good. But more than half of them wish that they saved a lot more. But what's really interesting in one of the answers is that 4 out of 5 in this group that was surveyed, 4 out of 5 were concerned about meeting retirement needs and running out of money. Can you imagine the stress that you would have in the final 1/3 of your life between the ages of 60 to whenever to 90, that you're living the last 30, 35, 40 years of your life with this concern that you're afraid of meeting your retirement needs and running out of money? I mean, can you imagine that?
Well, I don't think it's hard to imagine it, but it's not hard to imagine it because a majority of the retirement population is experiencing that, sadly to say.
Yeah.
Happening.
Yeah. So you're waking up, think about it, ladies and gentlemen, listening to the podcast here. You're waking up one day and the best time of your life was that 8 hours of sleep because you didn't have any worries. And then you wake up only to realize, dude, I don't know if I can go ahead and go outside and, my grandkids are coming over or I got to go to my grandkids. My oldest grandkid's going to have a wedding and I got to try to figure out if I'm going to get there on the Greyhound or if I'm going to hitchhike. Yeah. That's not a good scenario.
Yeah, no, it's we're making light of it, but those are the stress level and the types of decisions that many seniors that are ill prepared are making on a daily and sometimes hourly basis.
Yeah. And it's even more amazing. So again, you all know, I love demographics. I like the fact that it's pretty predictable. It allows for predictability and growth and many other things. And, the amazing part about demographics is that it like I think I just said, it allows for predictability. But the survey shows that in 2035, there will be about 78 million Americans that will be over the age of 65 in 2035. So considering that there's about 310 million Americans in the United States right now, total 310 million, and roughly 78 million in 2035, call it 80 million people will be past the age of 65. You're going to pretty much see a tremendous amount of individuals, roughly 1/3 of the population, is going to be gamely out of the spending bracket. They're not going to be spending like they used to. Because let's face it. When you're 65, you're 70, 75 years old, you're no longer buying a brand new car every 5 years. You're no longer sending your kids necessarily to college. At least I hope not. You're no longer looking to go and upgrade to the house of your dreams and taking on that $600,000 and $700,000 mortgage. You're not necessarily buying wine every weekend to go ahead and splurge and enjoy, with your spouse or any friends that come over on the weekends. You're retiring. And as a result, you're living in a retired lifestyle. And that retired lifestyle doesn't necessarily allow you, I can't say allow you, but just naturally, you don't necessarily are spending the same amount of money that you were spending when you're in your mid-40s. So it's an epidemic that we constantly talk to people about, in the Great American Retirement Crisis is this potential epidemic that we have as a society, that not only are we in a position where in the near future, we're going to have roughly 1/3 of the population past the age of 65, and meaning that they're not going to be spending like they used to, but we're also going to be in this position where you take the 150 million workers that we have right now with only 54 million people that set aside money for retirement of some sort. It really kind of creates the perfect storm. And it's something that really needs to be addressed more. And I'd like to see this as a significant topic and, going forward in a lot of forums, because it's just not being discussed enough. As it is right now is I can understand why it's not being discussed enough. And that's because if we discuss this more and it becomes viral and people start recognizing that they are in financial trouble, they just might, because they might end up not spending any money and they might start saving money. And what happens when you start saving money? Well, what happens is that corporations don't receive revenue.
Right. You turn into Japan. I mean, Japan's a nation of savers. Plus, they have a negative birth rate. So
yeah, there's not enough kids.
Yeah, they're not spending enough, and they're eliminating the number of spenders. So you got a really difficult economy over there. So the politicians don't want us to necessarily, turn into a nation of savers. Yeah, it's a tough thing, but the reality is we got the problem. we got homelessness on the rise, and it ain't gonna get better.
No. So it's something that's what we're, in our workshops and in our face-to-face meetings and these podcasts. And, we want to reach out and tell people that there is something on the horizon. It's a storm and it's brewing, and you have a choice to prepare for that storm because you still have time. But for the people that don't have time, I mean, man, and we see them all the time, Koz. We see people that don't have time. And even the people that do have time and they've already won the game, man, for the people that have already won the game, somehow they've managed to take that 7-figure amount and they drive it down to nothing.
Well, it might be a little random here, but I got to put this out there, Sam. One of the killers of a successful retirement is the refusal to understand that you can't afford that home anymore. This is a typical thing. Oh, I just can't leave this home. There's all these memories of the children growing up here. And, in this 4,000 square foot home, I know it's kind of big, but we just can't leave it. And all there is basically you and the spouse living there, and you've got 5 bedrooms and you've got this massive home, and the kids rarely visit, and you're still paying off this mortgage, which is running you, $4,000 a month. And there's no need for that. And if you're sitting on $10 million in retirement assets, not a big deal. But sometimes people that, they just don't have the affordability in the retirement to justify keeping that home, and you need to downsize, but that just doesn't happen. People are really stubborn about, keeping the sentiment. So it's just one of those things. I had to throw that out there.
Absolutely. It's one of these where it happens, man. We would have so much, we'd be, trillionaires, man, if, for all these stories that we talk about, that we experience, because that's what we see. We experience it on a regular basis, just, individuals making bad choices on a regular basis. But you know what? As we keep telling people, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. 100% not their fault. It's a percentage their fault because they still act on the choice. Yeah. I mean,
they're not totally blamed for it, but there is some responsibility, because you can't just keep making the same mistakes over and over, especially if you listen to the show and we're telling you got to make some sound money decisions, and you don't, now it becomes your responsibility, and you are going to be held accountable, not by us, but you'll be held accountable by the fact that you're saying, oh, dude, we're being evicted from our apartment, or we're our house got repossessed, and now we're looking to, put up a blue colored tent along the 57 freeway. That's going to be on you if you guys don't make the right decision to get things going in the right direction.
Yeah, in the right direction, because it becomes an issue not only just now, but it sustains itself, and it passes on through generation after generation, because our children, they see what's going on, and they learn from, you'd like to think they learn from our mistakes or lack of. But there's one thing that I remember from working with a guy years and years and years ago, really smart dude, man. This guy was like a guru, Asian dude, man, Asian guy, Taiwanese. And he would say all these really cool, like Confucius type things, right? But the guy was young. He was young. He wasn't, the fat little round bald guy.
Was it about walking on rice paper and when you're ready?
Like stealing the rock from his hand? No, he tried that with me one time, and I stole the rock from his hand without a problem. That's how fast I was. But you know what? Here's really what it boils down to. He said, it's okay to be wrong, but it's not okay to stay wrong. And that's our word, out there today is that, we all know what we're doing wrong. Every single one of us does. And it's okay. It's not our fault. But at the same time, it's not okay for us to remain wrong. And so we all understand our shortcomings that come about. And, I got to tell you, sometimes it's something that we didn't necessarily have control over. In other words, maybe somebody did something to us that ultimately affected us. And I get it. I get it. And that spiral of effect, that momentum that kept us down this path, after a while, it becomes a choice to stay down that path. And it's okay. It's okay. Just, you have to identify that it's not okay to continue down that path. And that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, just remember, 150 million of you guys are working, and only 54 million of you have money saved aside for retirement. And I don't even know how much money saved. They're just saying that they have at least $1,000. The 54 million people of the 150 only have, it could be 1,000, it could be 200,000, it could be 50 cents. I don't know what it is. But anyways, once again, we're listening and we're hearing the call of the open road. And again, this is the most exciting hour in podcast history. Should I say the most exciting 30 minutes in podcast history, right, Koz?
Absolutely. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to podcasting with you the next time. And I think this is the time.
You guys sound excited. That's all that matters. You sound excited. And I'll tell you what, I love that statement. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to stay wrong. And if I had gotten that fortune cookie when I was younger, I probably would have learned a lot more than I have in the past 10 years. But now, listening to you guys, I'm learning a ton. So thank you guys so much for your time again.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And till next time.
All right. Till next time. And thank you all for listening to the Financial Liberty Project podcast with Sam Legaspi and Koz Tsukamoto. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, shame on you, because it's right there. There's a button. Just click it. Subscribe now. This way, when Sam and Koz come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This will make it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Financial Liberty Project, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day, and we'll see you next time.
It's that time again where the call of the open road makes its way. We hope good fortune finds you on your own personal road. And until next time, we thank you for listening to the Financial Liberty Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.